Hello everyone, and welcome to our final Dark Souls Remastered Greatsword video, with the exception of our 100% cleanup of Dark Souls Remastered using our New Game Plus file in the future. Today, we're finally here to do what we said we would do, which is the analysis of our damage output with our Greatsword during 2 runs. One run where we normally obtain the Greatsword by just progressing through the game, and one run where we spawn the Greatsword in at the very beginning of the game. Now, one of the major differences here is that during the normal playthrough, we had to level up our Greatsword by just collecting souls and Titanite chunks until we were able to use it. And I say that despite the fact that when I first got the Greatsword, I was able to use it. But what I'm saying is we had to build up the strength to get there in the first place. You know what I mean? So a lot of souls wasted, a lot of time wasted, a lot of souls farmed, and a lot of Titanite chunks eventually collected to level up the Greatsword. However, during our cheated run, we spawned the Greatsword in, and we gave ourselves enough strength to just be able to use it. And the reason I did that is because we started measuring our Greatsword damage output, well, the moment we got it during our normal run. And when we got it for the first time, we were already able to use it with a single hand. So how else would I be able to compare it unless being able to use it with a single hand during the second kind of experimental run? Anyways, I was just interested in what the damage output would be, or at least I was interested in what the difference of the damage output would be for my favorite sword, and what the time to kill would be for my favorite sword. The only factors we're measuring here are essentially just damage, time to kill. We're not taking anything else into account, although we might talk about certain things. Like, there's a lot of factors that play an effect as to why we might be doing more damage with a Greatsword in one run compared to another. It's not genuinely, I thought, oh, if I get the sword earlier, I'll obviously do more damage earlier. We'll get there. Anyways, we've already spent a lot of time going through gameplay in the previous videos, so let's just jump right into this so we can eventually touch another game for once. It's just been Dark Souls for so long. I'm surprised we finished this. We're gonna eventually have to find the willpower to finish Payday 2 and Metro Exodus, but let's have some fun. Anyways, the bosses, in order, are the Asylum Demon, the Taurus Demon, the Bell Gargoyles, the Moonlight Butterfly, Capra Demon, Gaping Dragon, Stray Demon, Chaos Witch Quelaag, Great Grey Wolf Sif, the Iron Golem, Crossbreed Priscilla, Ornstein and Smog, Dark Sun Gwendolyn, Pinwheel, Gravelord Nito, Seath the Scaleless, the Four Kings, Ceaseless Discharge, Fire Sage Demon, Centipede Demon, Bed of Chaos, Sanctuary Guardian, Artorias the Abysswalker, Black Dragon Calamite, Manus Father of the Abyss, and Gwyn the Lord of Cinder. Now, this is actually the IGN order of what the bosses are. We'll actually be going through the boss order based on which boss we fought first during our second run. Anywho, I'll be making a short for what I'm about to say next, but I might as well mention it here. If you want to use a cheat engine to do your own unique, different, experimental Dark Souls Remastered runs, or as a matter of fact, any of the Dark Souls games, here's a video that you can check out. The link is in the description, but here's the video title. This is what it looks like. Now, I'd rather you refer to this video if you want to be able to do the exact same thing I did to be able to get the Greatsword that I wanted. There's no point in me telling you how to do it when someone else has already put in the effort and the time to make a video, so please, go check them out if you're interested in that. Anyways, let's get started. So we spawned a Greatsword into the game, and started chasing after every single boss we could, starting with the Asylum Demon. During our first run, we used a regular broadsword, or longsword, I'm not too sure. But anyways, it's one of the guaranteed weapons that you can get from point A, the beginning of the game, to point B, the Asylum Demon. There's not much else besides like a broken short sword or some shit like that. We dealt a whopping 30 to 38 damage per swing, which were just single hand attacks. I'm not sure if they were light or heavy. Couldn't really tell the difference because the damage output was just within that range regardless of the attack. Nonetheless, we took 1 minute and 46 seconds to kill this boss. Now, on the contrary, with our second run, well, we kind of pulled a stinky here because we wanted to do a drop attack on the guy, just hit him with the sword while we fall down. However, this led to a specific kind of animation that let us deal 718 damage. Dear God. This wasn't intentional, mind you. Nonetheless, we still had the opportunity to get a Greatsword swing in there. The regular two-handed swing for a starting Greatsword was 174 damage. So for every swing with our Greatsword here, it would have counted for 5.11 swings of our broadsword longsword, which we used in the first run. And this fight took 13 seconds, just because of that one fuck up for the drop attack. Anyways, that's cool. Next up is the stinking Taurus Demon. During our first playthrough, we switched from that longsword to a tiny wooden club. Now, this club, with its single-handed light attacks, dealt 45 to 51 damage per swing, and 101 for a heavy attack, also single-handed. With our Greatsword, however, now with lower durability, and single-handed, we dealt 110 for our light attack, and 160 for our heavy attack. Essentially, our light attacks single-handing this Greatsword would have accounted for roughly 2.29 light attacks with the wooden club, and 1.58 heavy attacks with the wooden club. The original fight took 1 minute and 24 seconds, while the fight during our second run was 1 minute and 16 seconds. After this, we have the goddamn Bell Gargoyles. I fucking hate those guys. That fight took days, took hours of recording, but we kind of put them in their place now, which felt really nice. During this fight, we were single-handing a Zweihander originally. Now that dealt 126 with heavy attacks. I think we only did one attack animation the entire time, and there was only one number for the damage output the entire fight, which was 126. I genuinely don't think we did a single light attack. So that fight took 42 seconds with the Zweihander. And summons. Yeah, I used summons for that fight. Nonetheless, our Greatsword output was 92 for a single-hand light attack, and then 144 for a single-hand heavy attack. The fight with the Greatsword during the second run took 2 minutes and 14 seconds. Our use of summons here was essentially a factor for error, so we can't really trust our time to kill here. Our damage output is way higher, so we could assume that the fight with the Zweihander would have taken a lot longer had we just used no summons, you know what I mean, and just our attacks. But yeah, we weren't thinking when we first did this fight, and we decided to, that's how frustrated we were that we wanted to progress in the game. We decided to sacrifice one boss to summons and essentially nullify it for doing our measurement of time to kill. There's a lot of other bosses to look at, okay? And we didn't really kill this boss with a Greatsword, so the comparison can't really be there at the end of the day, so don't worry, that's fine. After this, we have the Capra Demon. Not that much of a pain in the butt as the Bell Gargoyles, but the spacing was a big pain in the butt, especially the dogs, because with the Zweihander, the dogs weren't a guaranteed one-hit kill. Interestingly enough, not even with the Greatsword, there was one instance where we hit a dog and it just lived. Bitch, I lived. So, whatever. Fuck the Capra Demon, fuck the dogs, fuck that room. With this guy, we once again only did heavy attacks with our Zweihander, and in this case, we dealt 113 damage now. We still hadn't realized that durability was a thing, by the way, so I don't know, maybe we thought that the Capra Demon was just resistant to something, and that's why we were dealing less damage. But yeah, we dealt 113 damage now with our Zweihander. This fight took a total of 2 minutes and 30 seconds, whereas with our Greatsword, our single-handed light attacks were dealing 114 damage, okay? And our single-handed heavy attacks were dealing 160 to 177 damage. So our single-handed light attack for our Greatsword was practically one Zweihander heavy attack, and our Greatsword heavy attack made up for 1.49 Zweihander heavy attacks. Now, the Greatsword fight with the Capra Demon, so our second run took exactly 2 minutes. So we just shaved off 14 seconds. Cool. Next up, we got the Gaping Dragon. Easy motherfucking boss fight. Even the first run, there's just that strat that makes the boss fight take 5 minutes where you run away from it, so it chases you, and then you just smack its tail. Endlessly. You kite the boss into doing the exact same attack. So yeah, cool strat I liked. Instead of a Zweihander, we used a Great Axe here and took our time with the fight. So the Great Axe dealt 214 damage with the heavy attack, and that's really the only attack we did. I don't think we did a light attack. It literally just looks like heavy attacks. And even so, 214 was the only damage output visible throughout the entire fight, again and again. Now this fight took a long ass time, 6 minutes and 26 seconds. Yikes. Now with the Greatsword, we dealt 251 damage with a two-handed heavy attack and 182 damage with a two-handed light attack. So it's interesting that the Great Axe is actually an excellent option early game after the Zweihander for its high damage output. The only downside is having the two-handed early on and, not being able to use a shield, but From the looks of it, I'm the only person that uses a fucking shield on this planet. I actually like using shields. So yeah, our two-handed Greatsword light attack made up for 0.85 of a Great Axe heavy swing. And our two-handed heavy with our Greatsword made up for 1.17 of a Great Axe heavy swing. This fight here, now with the Greatsword, only took 5 minutes and 26 seconds. So we essentially shaved off a minute, which is not bad. Not bad. We just dealt more damage, so we didn't have to run around so often. After this, we have Chaos Witch Quelaag. For this fight, we still retained the Great Axe and only did 173 damage with every single swing, which are still heavy attacks, I think. I only say that because, number one, the animation looks the same and there's no different damage output. It was literally 173 for the entire fight. I think it was just heavy attacks. Now, my reasoning behind that is the fact that I don't fucking remember, but I don't think we'd go through doing light attacks considering the weapon itself is already so heavy, and the time difference between the light attacks would just make no difference. It would put us at a higher risk than just doing a single heavy attack, making more damage, waiting for the animation to finish, and just, regenerating stamina, looping back around. Whatever. This fight took 3 minutes and 29 seconds. But during our second run, we dealt 200 damage with our two-handed heavy attacks, and 113 damage with our two-handed light attacks with the Greatsword. And the fight took 3 minutes and 24 seconds. So weirdly enough, not much of a time difference here. I think we decided to take our time with the fight when using the actual Greatsword, hence the longer fight time. Or, truthfully, we could just say that the Great Axe in this case would be comparable to a +2 Greatsword when fighting Chaos Witch Quelaag. Interesting find, not gonna lie. I guess this would be the point in both of our runs where the weapon we're using meets in the middle with the Greatsword, right? Cheated into the run. So now after this, we got to Ceaseless Discharge. Not the best lineup, because that's not the boss we did in order during our first run. I don't know, I was fucking around, I was looking for bonfires, and I thought to myself, can I go to the Demon Ruins? What's stopping me from going there? Where is that yellow barrier? So, lo and behold, you can actually get to the Demon Ruins right after killing Chaos Witch Quelaag. You don't even need to get the Lord Vessel. You can get the first bonfire in the Demon Ruins and go kill Ceaseless Discharge to just get rid of all the lava. This essentially reveals the rest of the ruins, where you can fight the Taurus demons and the Capra demons, but you can't pass the door or the fog gate to the Fire Sage demon. So, since there's no real reason to continue with the bosses in this area unless we do the Lord Vessel, we just decided to get Ceaseless Discharge now and go back to the surface. So during the second run, we dealt 168 damage with our two-handed heavy attacks with our Greatsword, and 103 with our two-handed light attacks, Time to kill was 1 minute and 30 seconds. Now, when facing this fella during our first run, we actually already had the Greatsword since we did this fight much later into the playthrough. So our single-handed Greatsword attacks here dealt 200 damage, and our single-handed heavy attacks here dealt 345 damage, with our time to kill being 1 minute and 32 seconds. I think this boss fight is kind of negligible. I mean, our damage output is not exact, but it is relatively similar. Then again, I think this boss dies after a certain threshold of damage it receives or attacks it receives, and then just fucking blows up and dies. So we just happened to meet that threshold at practically the same time, even though we were using weapons with different damage outputs, being the +2 Greatsword during our second run and the +2 Lightning Greatsword during our first run. So after this, we went all the way back up to the surface and made our way into Sen's Fortress. We did not spend that much time here compared to our first run, thankfully. Okay? We essentially just prioritized getting to that first bonfire. We didn't have to worry about getting another Greatsword because we already had one, and we took out the Firebomb Giant. And, the only notable boss here is technically the Iron Golem. This is going to be an interesting one. Not just because of the damage, but hold on. During our first fight, we dealt 340 damage. And to note, from here on out, we only have the Greatsword. There is no more boss fights with different weapons. This particular Greatsword, when we killed the Iron Golem the first time, was a +4 or +5 just regular Greatsword, I think. There was really no other damage output. Once again, we only dealt heavy attacks with this Greatsword, so 340 was the only damage output we saw during our first fight with the Iron Golem. Time to kill was exactly 1 minute. Alright, now when we killed this guy the first time, we did it by dealing a final blow. Here. This is what it looks like, right? Just like any regular fucking Dark Souls boss. But what's interesting here is when we killed this guy during our second run, it was not with a final blow. We pushed this guy off the fucking platform. And it's because we essentially staggered him right at the edge, and during that animation, he falls backwards. And lo and behold, there's an animation for him falling off the platform. They thought about that. It is so cool. So yeah, when he falls into that stagger, he registers outside of the platform and he just, you know, fucking dies. I didn't even think this was possible. Alas, here we dealt 122 damage for our two-handed light attacks and 204 damage for our two-handed heavy attacks. Now, our two-handed light attacks here don't really count for comparison, since during our first fight with the Iron Golem, we didn't really do any two-handed light attacks, or any light attacks in general. However, our two-handed heavy attacks here made up about 0.6 of a two-handed heavy swing in the previous run. At this point, we're dealing way less damage than we did during our first run, and our fights are taking a little bit longer, so our time to kill here in our second run was 1 minute and 50 seconds. Now, the reasoning behind this. Okay, this is where we're gonna put on our thinking cap a little bit, because it's not just, oh, you know, if you spawn with the Greatsword earlier, the damage output should scale a lot quicker than if you got the Greatsword, you know, later. Well, the damage output doesn't scale linearly, okay? And there's a lot of factors for that. I mean, we spawned with the Greatsword, and we're really just aiming to get to the bosses as quick as possible, kill them, and measure our damage output, right? We're not spending that much time exploring the level, killing lower level enemies, and collecting other souls to level up our skills outside of the souls we get from the actual bosses. So most of our souls are actually going into leveling other skills, right? We can already use the Greatsword, so we're putting all these souls towards our health and our stamina. Whereas when we were actually playing the first time, a lot of our souls went into getting the strength up to be able to use the Greatsword. And since we were so used to leveling up our strength, we poured a lot more souls into strength throughout that entire run. So our damage output was increasing not from the actual sword itself, but from the strength. And since we spent a lot more time exploring the rest of the level and not just gearing towards the bosses, I mean, a boss would fuck us up and we'd go spend some time farming souls to level up again. So we would get extra souls and find, you know, Titanite around the map, since we actually explored, that we could use to level up our Greatsword a lot quicker. This is not something we're doing in this run, because we haven't really explored. We've just been going to, you know, fucking kill bosses. So in the last run, we were forced to get souls and upgrade our strength. So by normally acquiring a Greatsword and having to go through a natural process of exploring, by consequence, we collected enough souls and Titanite to upgrade our sword and essentially deal a lot more damage compared to the same point in the game where we spawn with the Greatsword and deal less damage. But that's just because we haven't spent that much time, you know, fucking around and finding out. I think that's cool. I think that's interesting. You know, like, realistically, if we spawned with the Greatsword, how much time would we have to spend to level it up so that it scales quicker than the Greatsword if we had found it naturally? Not for another time. Not for a fucking... This is the only experiment I'm doing with DSR. I'm gonna move to the Greatsword in other games. I can't get too obsessed with one thing. I have to move forward. Anyways, I thought that was cool. So, after this, right, we got Anor Londo next. We got the fucking crown jewel of Lordran. We are in this hoe with the Greatsword. The only downside is our Greatsword isn't as upgraded. And the next blacksmith is a ways away. But fingers crossed that we can level up our Greatsword to a higher point than it was during the previous run in Anor Londo. So the main bosses here are practically Ornstein and Smoke, Crossbeard Priscilla, Dark Sun Gwendolyn, and then Seath the Scaleless. So we'll go in the order of our current run instead of the previous one. First up is Ornstein and Smoke. And to be honest, this boss fight, for me, is one of the toughest in the entire game. You know, while I'm able to wipe out several bosses within one session in a day, this Ornstein and Smoke fight took about 3 days. During our first run, we dealt 268 damage with a single-hand light attack, and 368 damage with a single-hand heavy attack. This took about 1 billion tries, so let's ignore the number of tries for now. However, our time to kill was exactly a whopping 11 minutes flat. I hate you, Ornstein and Smoke. I really do. Dear Lord. Now, for our second run, we took 8 minutes and 54 seconds. We dealt 234 damage with our two-handed heavy attack on Ornstein, but 451 damage with our two-handed heavy attack on Smoke's second phase. So I find that interesting. Maybe they both have different resistances? And that's about it. We didn't even do a single light attack. Anyways, I do think overall we dealt more damage on our first playthrough, but we were just more afraid. So the first playthrough took a lot longer, okay? However, for the second playthrough, despite finishing that fight in a quicker time and dealing slightly less damage, everything that could have gone wrong during that fight went wrong. I'll show you the last 2 minutes so you can see what I mean. Take a look at this. Hello? Oh my fucking god. My controller died. How do I heal? How do I fucking run? What is the run button in this game? It's space. Okay. That's fucked up. What is the heal button in this game? Is it R? Keep running. Okay. Why is it not working? Why is it opening my fucking hard drive now? Just fucking work, bro. Just... It's literally not working. No matter what I do. It's just... It doesn't want to connect. Okay. My camera froze? That's hilarious. My camera froze! Everything that could have happened that run happened. Holy shit. This VOD is gonna be insane. After this, on the same day, we went to go kill the stray demon, as we needed some souls to level up a little more. At that point, I thought we were too, under-leveled to fight the Lord Soul, so we could wipe out a couple more bosses. So on our second playthrough, we dealt 326 damage with a two-handed swing, and 434 damage with a two-handed heavy attack. And we did this first try, with our time to kill being 2 minutes and 39 seconds. During our first playthrough, however, we took 3 minutes and 16 seconds and dealt 365 damage with a heavy one-hand attack. For some reason, that damage output only happened once, as every other heavy one-hand attack after that was 304. I think we passed that durability threshold, so that we dropped from 365 to 304 right there. And once again, not a single light attack in sight. This fight alone, our first try, took 3 times. So it's a big comparison to go from 3 tries to 1. And obviously, cutting down some time as well, since we were more experienced with the attacking mechanics for the stray demon. From here, we moved on to the Great Grey Wolf Sith, for our second run, where we dealt 205 damage with a single-handed light attack and 439 damage with a single-handed heavy attack, and also killed him first try, just like our first playthrough. Time to kill here was 2 minutes and 19 seconds, while on our first run it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So this fight kind of averaged out with a 1 second difference. During our first run, though, we dealt 362 damage with a one-handed heavy attack, and for some reason later on dealt over 500 damage. Maybe it was just where we were hitting him. I really don't know. So, next up, another little boss to get out of the way for some more souls is Dark Sun Gwendolyn, which took about 2 minutes and 34 seconds. We dealt 319 damage with a single hand heavy and 210 with a single hand light. On our first attempt, we took 2 minutes and 32 seconds. So once again, this is the kind of boss fight where the time still averaged out, and I think that's because the comparison from our Greatsword that we spawned with and the comparison with our Greatsword that we got naturally, at this point, it's still kind of level, you know what I mean? The comparison is chasing each other. Now, for the damage here, for our first run, was 451 for a two-handed heavy attack, and that's all we landed during our first run. So maybe we would have dealt more damage, since our single-handed heavy was already 319, but then again, the comparison is kind of erroneous with Dark Sun Gwendolyn and Grey Wolf Sith, because if we are dealing more damage, the fight should have gone by quicker, but it didn't. Also, it could be on our part. We could just be ass at the game as well. After Gwendolyn, we went to murder Crossbreed Basila again. Now, I hate killing this boss. I really do. I hope that when I do a cleanup of Dark Souls, I won't have to kill this boss. Because, there's no achievement associated with killing it again. You know what I mean? Like, I already did it. Anyways, this took about 56 seconds. But pretty crazy. We dealt 284 damage with a single-handed heavy and 177 with a single-handed light. This took 1 try. For our first playthrough, we took 1 minute and 33 seconds, and we dealt 299 damage with a two-handed light attack and 423 with a two-handed heavy attack. So at this point, with this boss, we can say that our Greatsword, with our second playthrough, where we spawned with it, was starting to actually show difference. With the last couple of bosses, we'd level up our strength, we have leveled up the weapon, and now we're dealing more damage, and we're able to dispatch bosses a lot quicker. And it also comes to our memory of the boss fights. We come with that experience from fighting them the first time, so we can deal with them a little bit quicker as well. So with Priscilla out of the way, that brings us to the end of our minor bosses. Kinda, other than the hydras that terrorize the lakes in this game. So cool, now it's time for the real bosses. So we memorized the way into the Duke's archives and quickly and efficiently, well, number 1, made it to the fake boss fight with Seed the Scalers and then got incarcerated, and number 2, made it to the bonfire we need for our run back to the Crystal Caves, which gets a lot quicker if you find a shortcut. I mean the shortcut is kind of necessary. If you don't find the shortcut, you kind of don't know where to go. It looks like a shortcut. Disregard what I just said. Now, fighting Seath, well, this boss fight took around 3 tries, okay? And the successful fight lasted 2 minutes and 7 seconds. And during this lovely boss fight, our two-handed heavy jab dealt 600 damage. Fellas, that's all we did. We only did heavy attacks. We wiped this dragon off the face of the Dark Souls universe and got our Lord's Soul. You can even hear how excited we are here. Alright, there's a Lord's Soul. Let's go. Am I even that excited? Not really. So for comparison, during our first run, we took 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So we did shave off some time. And we also dealt 342 damage with a two-handed light attack and 537 with a two-handed heavy attack. So our Greatsword is clearly starting to deal more damage than the one in the natural run. Now, from here on out is where the run started to become fairly easy, as we had already memorized most of the environments that we needed to go through to get to these bosses, and it was just us running from point A to point B, completely wiping out a boss, and then going from point A to point B again to the next boss. For example, let this be a core example, and this is also one of the reasons why we kind of fucked up the experiment, but we'll get to that later. So we make it to New Londo, okay? And we don't have a single transient curse in hand, which is an item we heavily relied upon to be able to get through New Londo last time, you know, so we could kill the ghosts, so we could explore and not have to worry about anything, but no. We had no transient curse. Well, no problem. All we did was run from point A, which is, you know, that elevator from Firelink Shrine, to point B, where you get the key. So we ran through the main building, avoided the ghosts, and we made it through the second fog gate, which led us to a bridge. And from there, we snuck our way around another building, jumped on top of it, dropped inside of it, and avoided a really scary ghost. And we just climbed up a ladder, tanked a couple of hits, and we were able to get our key. And, you know, like bam, that's it. No difficulty. This took way too long the first time, right? But I guess since we explored and we were thorough already, we didn't really care. And that bit us in the ass. You'll see. So we open the gates of New Londo Ruins and drain the water away and make our way down through the lower level of the ruins. Now, it took us 2 tries to actually get to the lower level of the ruins, and then it took us 2 tries to actually kill the boss. Seriously, man, maybe I'm disappointing myself with how easy this is becoming. You know what I mean? Like, the difference between our great swords is showing, okay? Like, the experiment is fun, I'm not gonna lie. But when we're whooping bosses' asses so much, and the progress is way smoother than usual, it just, you know, it makes me want to think that maybe, you know, these Souls games get easier the more you play them, the more you memorize the fights. Like, how fast can you really do this if you already know where to go? That would be shown in a third playthrough, which I'm not doing until I 100% the game. What I'll do instead is try my hand at other Souls games, right? And bring my experience of Dark Souls to these other games and continue the art of leveling up strength until you kill everything with, you know, your Greatsword, that is. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. The 4 kings, okay? So the two-handed light attacks dealt 306 damage, and two-handed heavy attacks dealt 426. And it took us 2 minutes and 49 seconds to kill the boss. Now, for our first run, we dealt 397 with a one-handed heavy attack, which is all we did, and the fight took 3 minutes and 21 seconds. So, very big difference. Okay, mainly because we didn't get grabbed in the second run. It was kind of like good luck was on our side, a lot of RNG. We could continue hitting the boss. He didn't touch us once, so this happens quite a bit actually, you'll see. After acquiring our second Lord Soul, we snuck our way into the catacombs. Now, we already have the bonfires here at the catacombs because we decided to kill Pinwheel earlier on to get more flasks. So we have the first bonfire in the catacombs, and we have the second bonfire where we see that skeleton blacksmith. That bonfire is the one we want to get to. So we quickly teleport to that bonfire in the catacombs, and it acts as a perfect run back to go directly to Pinwheel's tomb, which leads us directly to the Tomb of Giants. And somehow, mind you, by a stroke of luck, we got a skull lantern while we were killing priests the first time we came to the catacombs. And this skull lantern is one that you get in the Tomb of Giants after being kicked into a pit, but hey, we already got it. We could essentially just start roaming the Tomb of Giants and go directly to the bonfires. So what the hell, that's exactly what we did. We walked into the Tomb of Giants with the light of God already in our hands, and we were able to slide our way down to the first bonfire, okay? And from this bonfire, we ran past all the Skeledogs. You know, we already memorized how to get to that second bonfire. So when we got there, we lit it, and we had already memorized how to get from that bonfire to Gravelord Nito. And when I say memorized, I don't mean deliberately, I just mean we had done this so many times in our first run that it was just muscle memory. Now, like our first fight, we used a Divine Greatsword to get rid of the skeletons that respawn, and we used a regular Greatsword to fight Nito. So we went on our way, and we made our way all the way to Gravelord Nito's boss room. And then we dropped down there, and then we killed the fuck out of Gravelord Nito. Yeah, this boss fight took one try, okay? Gravelord Nito took one try. The fight itself took 1 minute and 51 seconds, and we dealt 417 damage for our two-handed heavy, which is all we did. And we got 2 overhead attacks in there that dealt 436, minor difference. This was crazy for a first try, okay? Especially for a second run where this took so many tries the first time. We just came in here and we just destroyed this guy. We dismembered the skeleton. We killed him a second time. You know what I mean? This guy was dead. Now he's dead again. So this brings us to our first run, where we dealt 203 damage for a single-hand light attack. And weirdly enough, that is all we did, not even a single heavy attack. Maybe you just wanted to get more attacks in. It's been a little while. But that fight took a crazy 4 minutes and 37 seconds. And it was not a first try, let me tell you. So with Lord Soul 3 down, we made our way into hell. We had already secured a bonfire close to here because of the Chaos Witch that's just chilling here. And in one go, we killed the Fire Sage Demon and the Centipede Demon. And with a couple of tries, the Bed of Chaos. So for the Fire Sage Demon, we dealt 442 damage for our two-handed heavy attacks, which is all we did. And the fight took 2 minutes and 32 seconds. Easy. Now, for our first run, we took about 9 tries. Okay, we dealt 426 damage for our single-handed heavy, and we had a lightning greatsword in this case. So there's a slight difference between the weapon we used just based on its category. It's still a greatsword. It's still the greatsword, but we brought in a different type of greatsword. The comparison isn't exact, which is unfortunate. That's my bad on my part. But with that lightning greatsword, we dealt 276 for our single-handed light attacks, and the fight took 2 minutes and 9 seconds. So we did take a bit longer, and I think it's because we were using a bit more patience for this boss fight. We didn't want to fuck up, so we decided to really respect the boss in his personal space. And then when he fucked up his attacks, we disrespected his personal space and attacked him. And that usually takes time. Right after this was the fight with the Centipede Demon, which was a first try boss. In both cases, actually. We killed him first time during our first run, and we killed him first time now during our second run. So I think this says a lot about the Centipede Demon, not about the actual player. Anywho, we dealt 328 damage with our two-handed light attack, and 440 damage with our two-handed heavy attack, with the fight taking 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Now, during our first run, we dealt 242 damage with our single-handed light attacks, which is all we did to get a wide swing on his legs, you know, because if we do a heavy attack, we might miss. It happens a lot, actually. The jab, you can miss a lot with that jab. That fight took 3 minutes and 28 seconds, a little longer because he just happened to be stomping around during that boss fight the first time, every time we tried to get close to him, so once again, a bit of RNG with these boss fights, can't lie. Then after this fella, well, apparently the most annoying boss in the game. And I get it, you know, it is annoying. But hey, can you imagine if the Bed of Chaos didn't save? If you had to redo that entire process again and again and again? That's a little different, right? Anyways, for our first run, well, damage doesn't really matter for this boss fight since every weak point is practically one hit. So hey, let's compare the times for this fight. Okay, now since this boss fight saves, we'll be doing a total time from the moment we step through the fog gate to the moment the boss died. The total for our second run was 20 minutes and 43 seconds, while the total for our first run was 22 minutes and 29 seconds. There was a portion in the first run where we didn't know where to go for that last weak point you have to find, but with the second run we kind of already knew. It was just making the jump, and we failed a lot, so that's why I think we took 20 minutes and not less than that. The sword makes no difference here, unfortunately. Now, that's cool. We have the last Lord Soul. Now, all we have to do is the DLC, the Ash Lake Hydra, and Gwyn. Let's start with the DLC, okay? We have to kill the Hydra chilling here in the Dark Root Basin. This took 2 tries. Now, we used a single-handed light attack to get a wide enough range to actually hit the boss, okay? Hitting this boss is really tedious, and the heavy attack jabs would most likely miss, especially when the boss's head goes underneath the ground. Those dealt 280 damage each. And we did 1 overhead heavy attack, which dealt 316. This fight took 7 minutes to complete, because there comes a point where even if you stand still, this boss will purposefully miss you. Like, its attack won't be anywhere near you, and you have to chase it. And there's the fear of falling off the edge and having to do it all over again. Now, during our first playthrough, it took us 4 tries, and we dealt 313 damage with our single-handed light attacks. The time to kill here was 3 minutes and 57 seconds. Yikes. Once again, RNG, I suppose. It seems that during our first fight, we dealt with the more troublesome heads first, and in the second run, we dealt with them last. Anywho, mini-boss out of the way, and this opens up access to the DLC. And the first DLC boss, the Sanctuary Guardian. We killed this guy first try, okay? And that is something I'm super proud of, because this guy was a pain in the ass the first time. We dealt 394 damage with our two-handed heavy attacks using a raw greatsword. And that's all we did, once again. Although, there were some heavy attacks that dealt over 552 damage, and I think that's due to where we hit him. And this fight, okay, took 1 minute and 50 seconds. That's crazy. Now, for our first playthrough, this fight took a countless amount of tries. It was generally fucked up. I was just not used to a Dark Souls Remastered boss being this quick, this agile, this responsive, you know what I mean? Back-to-back attacks, so many different attacks. I'm used to the clunky and predictable bosses. So here we dealt 371 with a two-handed heavy attack and 260 with a two-handed light attack. And a direct strike to the head was 520 damage. Now the time to kill here was 2 minutes and 2 seconds. So not bad. There is a measurable difference, okay? After this boss is Artorias. Now let's switch up the playthrough orders a little bit, okay? During our first playthrough, this fight took 14 or so tries. And we were absolutely frustrated because we knew how close we were to actually finishing the game. The damage we dealt here was 207 for our two-handed light attacks, and interestingly enough, 167 for our two-handed heavy attacks. For some reason, the heavy attacks were dealing less than the light attacks. I think I didn't do my research, but I think there's some kind of resistance here, and that's why the damage fluctuated. It's opposite of what it would be in all the other bosses. Maybe it was his buff, or where I was striking. And then again, this guy buffed a million times, so that was also quite annoying. The time to kill here was 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Now for our second playthrough, it took 3 tries to beat his ass, with a time to kill of 3 minutes and 12 seconds. So a huge difference, okay? Our damage dealt was 314 for a two-handed light attack, and 290 for a two-handed heavy attack, and he didn't really buff that much this time. I mean, then again, I think he just has immunity to heavy attacks. Nonetheless, we cooked this guy. Next up was Manus, an absolute fucking loser. During our first playthrough, this took 48 tries. It took 3 days. I'm not even joking. We have our good runs with bosses, and then we have our absolutely shit runs with bosses. The time to kill for this boss, though, for the successful run, was 2 minutes and 28 seconds. So when we got the hang of it, we were actually successful. The damage dealt was 389 for a two-handed heavy attack and 324 for a two-handed light attack. Now, for our second playthrough, this fight did not take an insurmountable number of tries, but rather just 5 tries with the time to kill being 4 minutes and 3 seconds. We dealt anywhere between 381 to 457 with our two-handed heavy attack. Really not sure why. We dealt 265 with our two-handed light attack though, which is pretty okay. And our experience brought us a long way to turn 48 into 5 tries. Big difference. Now, to shine some light on the 48 tries, there was an attack. Now, I didn't see this in the previous bosses. I saw this just in the DLC bosses. But there's this one attack that Manus does that he either grabs you or he swings, and they're both very similar. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the grab and the swing. So if you dodge out of the way from the swing, he actually just grabs you, and he fucks your shit up, right? And if you dodge in to avoid the grab, he just swings and he hits you. Even if you're lucky enough to avoid the grab, he still goes through his whole grab animation, right? So if you happen to accidentally walk in his direction, even if he's halfway through or in the final part of his grab, it'll still lock you in. It'll still clock the shit out of you, right? Very unfortunate. If he misses the grab, he doesn't just stop it. No, he goes. It's like he's doing Super Smash Bros. With some invisible enemy there. You know what I mean? Calamite does the same thing. And that's why I said I only see this in the boss fights. Very frustrating. 48 tries. Kept getting fucked up by that grab until I got lucky. I got lucky enough to dodge it, and then he didn't do it, that many times. But anyways, yeah. After Manus, we had to deal with Calamite and the Hydras. But for Calamite, he was one fuck-ass boss. During our first playthrough, it took 7 tries. Just 7 tries, but those were the worst 7 tries of my life. I knew that I was just a pubic hair away from finishing this game. And every time Calamite would do something that I would not expect, or would button mash, the boss would repeat attacks, you know what I mean? Or because I was at a certain distance, he would grab me, and even if I dodged it, I'd teleport into the grab. Frustrating. That fight tilted me so much. I'm glad I never have to do it again. I'm really glad I never have to do it again, because none of the achievements have anything to do with the DLC. I can just finish the base game when I want to 100% clean up this game. Never have to see Calamite again. Whew. Anyways, for the time to kill, for the final one was 4 minutes and 12 seconds, and our damage output was 244 for our two-handed light attacks, and 367 for our two-handed heavy attacks. very little damage. This fight took some time, okay? For the second playthrough, it took 14 tries, and I don't know what to say. The reason it probably took more tries during the second playthrough was because we were coming in with confidence and then got caught off guard and kind of forgot how frustrating his grab was. We got him one hit, like 2 times, but then we died before we could get that last hit in. That was frustrating. I love my keyboard too much to break it. The time to kill for that final try for our second run was 2 minutes and 58 seconds. So we shaved off a minute of kill time, okay, which is very, very, very good, despite the abundance of tries. We did deal less damage than our first playthrough, though, and I don't even really know why. We had the same +5 raw greatsword in both situations. I think it was just an issue with durability. A lot of things to keep track of when trying to run an experiment in Dark Souls Remastered, and I think I fucked it up because I didn't really take all these factors into consideration. Nonetheless, in some cases, we can clearly see that spawning with the greatsword is way better. Cool, Calamite was out of the way, and if I were to rank the worst bosses in Dark Souls, there'd only be 2 bosses on my list, okay? Ornstein and Smough would be the first one, and Calamite would be the second one. Manus wasn't that big of a deal once we, got the hang of it, because obviously 48 to 5 tries, I think the issue was us. But, even though I hate these bosses, that's what makes them the best boss fights for me. If you're not absolutely tilted with your boss fights, they're not good. The boss should be designed to shit on you. But anyways, 2 more bosses, and we're done. We have to do the Hydra at Ash Lake, where during our first playthrough, we only did it, to kind of get to the Dragon Covenant. So for our second playthrough, I said, fuck it, why don't we just go kill this boss as well and see what the comparison is. So for the first playthrough, we fought this guy really early on, all right? He took 4 tries, and the time to kill was 6 minutes and 7 seconds. Dear God, our damage output was 215 for a single-handed light attack, and that's all we did again. The light attacks are really good for their range, how wide they are. In our second playthrough, well, we dealt 337 for our 2-handed light attacks and killed him first try. It was amazing to know that I had that boss between me and Gwyn, and I got rid of him first try. Dear God. Our time to kill was 2 minutes and 33 seconds. A huge improvement. Huge improvement. Now, fellas, this is what you've been waiting for. The final boss fight, okay? There is a major difference between our playthroughs for this boss fight, unfortunately. I've been trying to allude to this because of, the amount of errors that I've been bringing up regarding the weapons used, even though they're the same. But I'll explain this. This is why I think the experiment kind of failed, and why I'll be changing the way I do challenges and experiments for videos in the future. Anyways, for Gwyn, on our second playthrough, he took 2 tries, and a time to kill of 1 minute and 28 seconds. We obviously used the parry strat here. We dealt 557 damage to parry, and that might seem like a lot, right? But it really isn't. Let me get to this. We had to parry him a total of 6 times. Now, we did do 9 parries, but only 6 of them were successful to go through into the animation, while another 3 weren't, and we just hit him with regular heavy attacks. Now, for our first playthrough, this took 9 tries and a time to kill of 1 minute and 8 seconds. Yikes, right? We added on more time to our time to kill for our second playthrough. All we had to do was parry him exactly 4 times, and with each parry, we dealt 940 damage, okay? The major difference was that during our first playthrough, we found a very large ember in New Londo Ruins, and we were able to upgrade our greatsword from +10 to +15. That's what gave us that extra edge on the damage dealt. But for our second playthrough, we ran through New Londo Ruins just to get to the boss fight and forgot to find the large ember, very large ember. So we were stuck with a +10 greatsword. I wanted this fight to be done, so I killed him regardless, right? And that's the big difference with the damage. I can't compare it. Realistically, the greatsword that you spawn in with should do more damage, but I don't have the proof because I fucked up not getting that ember. Anyways, this brings us to the end of our 6-month experiment. 6 months. I started playing Dark Souls in August. I'm surprised I went that long for this one. I'm proud of myself, and regardless of how this video does, I enjoyed every second of it. The drivetrain one didn't take this long, and that one was actually fun as well. I'm actually coming up with good videos, to be honest. But I digress. Let's wrap up with our conclusion and a couple of footnotes for future videos. So, my friends, can we beat Dark Souls Remastered with just a greatsword? Sure as hell we can. Sometimes the time to swing makes it difficult, and the souls poured into strength for damage makes us vulnerable in our health and in our armor, because we need endurance to be wearing all that armor. But it is still 100% possible once you obtain the greatsword. Can we beat all of Dark Souls Remastered with the greatsword? Yeah, by spawning a greatsword in. And naturally, this should be the easier route, You should be able to deal more damage if you go through the same upgrading process that you did with your initial playthrough, right? If you go all the way to plus 15, if you get all the different types of greatswords to fight all the different types of enemies, spawning in with a greatsword will get you through the game quicker. It's just because of that amount of strength that you already possess when you start with that greatsword. Realistically, no one's gonna do that, you know what I mean? Unless you want to do your own custom run and get your own weapons just to have fun with the game, you can do that. But yeah, we answered the question. We can finish Dark Souls Remastered, the whole game, with a greatsword. And in most cases, where we didn't fuck up our own experiment, it is way better than doing the greatsword naturally. Most of the experiment is okay up until the 4 Kings, right? Because we could have left New Londo Ruins with that Ember, but we didn't. And then every single boss fight after that has a lot of error, right? Because we're not using the exact same level weapon. So I had a lot of fun playing Dark Souls Remastered for this long. Genuinely a lot of fun. It's really nice to put a game that's that difficult into my completion list and say that I can finish Dark Souls Remastered. You know what I mean? It's a sense of completion. It's really cool. Everyone should be playing that game. Everyone should be trying to finish these difficult games. If there's a difficult game you have in your library, go for it, man. You know what I mean? Get that shit out of the way. Prove to yourself that it's not impossible. I had a lot of fun working on the previous videos. This was a 3-parter. I won't be doing series videos again. It takes a lot of time. But I also had a lot of fun streaming this game and sharing this game with my girlfriend, being able to play with her. From here on out, I'll be doing videos in a one and done format. All right, so no 2 or 3-parters. I mean, 6 months for one topic, it's a pretty long time. I don't want to dedicate 1 month per topic, or at least 2 months per topic, you know what I mean? A lot has been going on lately, so I didn't have that much time to work on this video, and that's why it was stretched out, right? But recently over the Christmas break, I just wiped out the entire game, and now with extra time, I'm, slowly making it. So in future, if we have a challenge or experiment, we're gonna ask our question, test it, and then answer it in a single video. And I will try to be a lot more thorough and limiting with the way I do challenges and experiments so that comparisons actually make sense and errors don't fuck up what we're trying to do. This might make videos longer, but I'm sure I can make it work, okay? I just want to put more videos out there on a lot more games. Like, I genuinely love doing this. And there are so many videos I want to do and so many games I want to do. And I aspire to see a day where all my games on Steam are either done or 100%ed or in the 100% cleanup so I can stream achievement hunting. And then I can look through my YouTube and see all the completion on all those games. And I can see all the funny challenges or all the interesting challenges and all the work put into making these games fun. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you play games and they become draining and you get burnt out. But by doing things like this, I think I can 100% my whole Steam library and also entertain you. Now, as for all the Dark Souls Remastered footage, I won't be posting it, unfortunately. I started a VOD channel a couple weeks ago and I've been posting streams. And a lot of this Dark Souls footage was just acquired for editing. So it's just quiet, it's just dead, you know what I mean? I won't be putting it up on my VODs, although some of the VODs do contain Dark Souls footage from recent streams since I clumped Dark Souls with other games that I played with my friends. But from here on out, since I'm always streaming the footage I collect, all other footage for any other experiment or challenge that I run will be posted on my VOD channel. You can find that here. My next video will be asking the question of survivability within Project Zomboid, a game I've had in my library for a while. This game has no achievements, so progress has to be measured by in-game completion. We're going to see if I can survive 24 hours consecutively. Not 24 hours straight. I can't play that long yet, unfortunately. But just, if I survive 3 hours one stream and 2 hours another stream, it's 5 hours. How long can we survive? Up until 24 hours. And if we die, well, we're going to reset the timer. And I say we because I'm going to be doing this challenge with my girlfriend. So if she dies, we also reset the timer. Now, another factor that I'll be doing is if we die, it's not just resetting the timer, but also resetting the save. Because if you die in Project Zomboid, you can just go back to the, your character, pick up your shit. You can just go back to all the stuff that you've already made. You know what I mean? You have all your base there, all your experience, all your books. Everything is practically there, right? But I want to start from scratch every single time to actually be able to progress through the game and enjoy it properly. Because can you imagine if I have an hour left and then I die? I have to restart the timer and I'm already done the game. Like, I've already made my base, I've already made everything. So we're gonna do, reset saves, reset timer if we die. And I hope that that time will give us the ability to become a self-sufficient survivor within the game, to get to the point where food doesn't matter, where safety doesn't matter, power doesn't matter. We've practically done everything. I'm super excited for that because I love Project Zomboid and I think it'll be an interesting video to make as well. This video will be started a week's time after I upload this one, so please tune in for the streams to see how we do. And once again, it has truly been a pleasure. Thank you for those who watch these videos. I really hope I can make more of them. I really hope these entertain you. And I hope I can keep working on this channel and making my online presence, noticeable as a video game tester, experimenter, journalist, you know what I mean? That kind of shit. But anyways, much love, and I will see you next time. Peace.
Did you beat him?
Yeah.
Good job, baby. We can cross that off. Finishing